everybody, I am Jared Ross of GeneaVlogger, and welcome back to another Professional Genealogist Reacts. On today's video, I will be reacting to how Japanese am I really, checking my DNA test results by Max D. Capo or Max D. Capo. I'm not 100% sure. Not really familiar with this channel. I did look up, a little bit about him. He's half Japanese and his channel is about Japanese culture. I don't quite know what the other half is technically. I would assume European based on, I think I saw that he was in North Carolina. Now I'm kind of also basing that on the, few photos I've seen of him because he does look somewhat European. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what he gets. I know one of the things that's always a question in my mind when I see someone who has Japanese results is, are they going to get Japanese for all of their Asian side, or will it be more of a mixture? Or in some cases, will there actually be a much higher percentage of something else, like maybe Korean or Vietnamese, or something that, isn't quite expected. But I guess we'll just have to jump in and see. But before we do, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help me out. Also, be sure to subscribe and click that bell for notifications on future videos. And now, with a word from our sponsor, let's switch over to Jarrett. Thank you, Jarrett. Today's sponsor is Useful Charts. And I imagine some of you are thinking, well, how can his sponsor be another YouTube channel? Well, Useful Charts is more than just a YouTube channel. They actually make posters. These posters cover all sorts of topics, including royal family trees, different timelines of the world, religion and mythology, and even the alphabet and writing systems. For genealogists, a lot of these posters can be extremely useful as reference guides as you do more and more research. I myself just received this package in from Useful Charts, so we're going to go ahead and unbox it and check out some of these posters. Cut that open. Now, I got a bunch of really great posters. I got the European Royal Family Tree West. Now, I actually connect into this tree, which is one reason I got it, because it can be fun to reference as I do different research connected to that tree. I also have Writing Systems of the World, which is extremely useful for genealogy when you're dealing with different languages. When looking at documentation in different languages, it can be extremely helpful in figuring out how to just pronounce names, and just being able to find a name in a document can be a big help in research. I also have the timeline of European history. As you go through your genealogy, it's great to know the context of what you're looking at in terms of world history. And lastly, one of the ones that I'm really looking forward to, timeline of US history. So for anybody who has Ancestry in the United States, this can be extremely useful to reference as you're doing your research as well. So let's go ahead and cut this one open so we can take a look at it. Let's see. You can shake it out of here. There we go. Now, these are not laminated, but it comes on cardstock, very similar to what you get for a business card. But they are also the size of a typical poster, so you can just get any sort of frame for any type of poster you get at the mall or anything, and this should fit that perfectly. Now, this is so cool. So we have over here on this side the map of the United States as it changes throughout the years. So 1581, 1621, 1661. So when it has these maps, you actually can see where the different Native American tribes are. And then over here on this side, we have the different rulers who were in charge of the US. So before it was actually the United States, you have all the different kings and royalty, but then you get down into the presidents. And beyond just having them for reference for genealogy, they're just a really cool thing to have, and they look really nice. To purchase these posters, just go to their website, and I actually have an affiliate link down below. So if you want to go check it out, click that link, and not only will you get the posters, but then I'll actually get a kickback. So you'll be helping support the channel just by purchasing these posters. Now, these posters are only $19.95, but if you buy two, you get 10% off, so they're $17.95. If you buy three, you get 20% off, so they're $15.95. And if you buy four or more, they're 30% off, so you get them for $13.95 each. There are currently 19 styles of posters that are available, but there are always new posters that are in progress. So there may be some new posters for us to check out very soon. But with all of that fun stuff said, let's go ahead and jump into the video.
Hey everybody, Max here again, and today I wanted to do a very highly requested. I'm going to be checking my family tree because, hey, I'm half Japanese, but how half Japanese am I really? This is the question that everyone wants answered. I can tell you right now, my dad is Polish, German. Okay, this is what he's told me. He's half Polish, 1/4 German, 1/4 Italian, which should make me 1/8 Italian. Oh wait, no. Oh shoot, this is he's half Polish, 1/4 German, 1/8 Italian, and 1/8 Irish. So I should be 1/16 Irish, 1/16 Italian, even though my last name is Capo, which is the Italian part.
Oh, that's so funny that I didn't know which way to pronounce it. Or, you know, in genealogy, the pronunciation can be all over the place depending on where people move, because sometimes it's just easier to pronounce your name more of the style of like the local place. So like my name is Jarrett, but you know, I was on the news in Ukraine and they said my name Ziaret because they don't really have a J. They make like they use a D and then kind of like a ZH sound. So it's Ziaret. So, you know, like if I was in Ukraine, I'd be Ziaret. So, you know, if I knew someone who was Russian and they pronounced my name Ziaret instead of Jarrett, it's the same difference. So, not quite as the same as capo, you know, potato, but it's interesting that he is saying this. And I do want to say the way he is telling of his dad's side, it sounds like his dad or somebody on that side did build out a family tree. And so they actually do know a good amount of their family. If his dad is 1/8 Irish, that sounds like his dad has a great-grandparent, which then means Max's second great-grandparent, who is of Irish ancestry.
1/8 German, and then 1/4 Polish. That's what I should be. And then I should be 50% Japanese, but who knows? Hey guys, Future Max here. I realized I was an idiot and I didn't record my screen, so what I'm doing here now is I'm going to record my screen a second time. So you're going to see the mouse go around, probably not the same exact way. It's impossible. But I'm going to do my best just to let you know that's why it's going to look a little.
I feel your pain. I know that feeling of doing a video and then you go to edit and you screwed something up or you forgot to do something. He hasn't built a family tree on Ancestry yet, which I suggest if you have done your DNA on Ancestry, build a family tree, connect your DNA to the family tree, because then you will be able to access through lines. When you look at your matches, it will also show you if someone has a common ancestor in their tree. So you'll be able to tell right off the bat different people and how they're related to you. But let's jump in. We can already kind of see his results already, actually.
I'm 48%. I'm actually less half Japanese than I thought. I'm 48% Northern Japan, 24% Eastern Europe and Russia.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting that they do Northern Japan specifically. I see this video is September 27th, 2020, so it's just a little over a year old at this point. So I am wondering, is it still defining as Northern Japan? Or maybe have they broken it down in the more recent update? I think they've been trying to get, you know, better results for a lot of their Asian populations and African populations. But unfortunately, it's much more vague when you're dealing with a lot of those communities just because they don't have as large of a database. So those with European ancestry can kind of get maybe you could say stronger reading, but, you know, a lot of people that have Asian ancestry will sometimes look at the DNA test based in Asian countries, which we've seen in some of these other videos. So companies like WeGene, I think GeneLife is one of them. I know there were a few others, so maybe it'd be interesting for him if he wanted to see more about his Asian side to take one of those tests and see, does it give him a different breakdown or a more nuanced breakdown than what he has here on Ancestry.
That would be the Polish part, which I should be 1/4 Polish, so that's kind of funny. That should be accurate. 15% England, Northwestern Europe, 5% Germanic, and 8% other region. All right, so here is the tree.
Okay. Well, that's not the family tree. That is far from the family tree. The way that I like to think of this This is like if you took a snapshot of your family tree, but you could only see like a really pixelated version of it. So basically, you get an idea of the family tree from these admixtures, these percentages, but you don't get the full crisp picture of what's going on. So sometimes little things that maybe you won't see because it's pixelated, you won't find unless you do your genealogy, build out your family tree. So I find it funny that he's calling this the family tree when it's far, far from it. This is a scientific estimation. That's really well.
You can see it's all Europe and Asia. And I'm impressed that these things do a good job. Ancestry DNA does a good job, apparently, because my mom is from Japan. There's no doubt about that. But northern Japan, 48%. Let's read it. Primarily located in Japan, yes.
So when they say northern Japan, it looks like that's circling all of Japan, except for like, I guess you could kind of, not down below the little islands. But we do see that little dotted outline version of it. So, they say northern Japan, but is it really more just kind of Japan and they're just saying, well, it feels a bit northern, but we're not really sure. So let's see if he knows where in Japan his ancestry is from specifically. I imagine he would if his mom's Japanese.
It's circled I'm a little bit surprised because my mom is Japanese, but she actually has been told she looks a lot more like Inca Indian, which is like South America, I think. That's more related to like the Ainu people in northern Japan. So the fact that I'm 48%, does that mean my mom is Ainu? I have to ask her some questions.
Okay, so I see what he's saying below. I don't know if you'll all be able to read this. I'm going to try to blow it up. Upon further research, northern Japan might just refer to the Jomon people. Modern day Japanese are a mix of Jomon and Yaoi people. I apologize for any mispronunciations. So that's interesting. So, it could, there is a possibility if it's his mom's side, he could do what's known as a mitochondrial DNA test, and suggested it'd be through family tree DNA specifically, or through a whole genome test, not just like 23andMe's haplogroup. But if he were to do that, that might be able to tell him a specific connection to a specific population group, because mitochondrial DNA and Y-DNA, you can kind of get some of those more specificities of the deeper ancestry. So if he does have that on his mom's side, on his purely maternal, so literally just going up his mom, and so on, then, that finds out that line.
My grandfather, my Oji-chan, on my mom's side, my mom's father, he passed away way before I was born.
I have to apologize real quick right here. I just realized that the volume was completely off. I feel your pain. I know that feeling of doing a video and then you go to edit and you screwed something up or you forgot to do something. That's why the audio for the video all of a sudden gets a little bit louder.
A lot of people would point at him, like his picture in my Oba-chan's place, and be like, 誰だこの外人ってよく言われた。だから my Oba-chan was always like, no, this is my husband, he's Japanese. And people would be very surprised. So maybe I just stumbled across something very big. But I'm going to have to look more into this later. I'm doing a little bit of research, but Japan apparently is here. And northern Japan is Japan, but it's here. It's this yellow spot. So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but it seems like I'm actually half Hokkaido. All right, I'm going to have to talk to my mom because that is surprising, but this doesn't make sense because my mom is a product of both my Oji-chan and Oba-chan.
I think the test is being a little vague while also not. And I think that's why he's kind of getting these confused. I don't understand what's going on. Because I think he's trying to read a little too much into it. Because in reality, I really am questioning this whole calling it Northern Japan, because, like, yeah, he's right that the difference between that dotted outline and then that full outline was that little part in the top, but it's basically covering all of Japan. So in my mind, I would think it's really just Japanese. That's the best way you could read it, where, I mean, I might be wrong in this, but I would read it as Japanese, but it makes sense that the connection would be to mainland Japan, not one of the islands off the coast. But even then, it wouldn't be like a strong, this is the exact whatever. It's just, well, this is kind of how we're seeing it based on what we know. But these tests are far from perfect when it comes to these percentages.
So why would I be 48% that, unless, of course, my entire family is? So this is primarily Belarus, Czechia, Hungary, Moldova, Poland, there it is, and all these other places. Your ethnicity estimate is 24%, but it can range from 8 to 27%. That's a big margin of error, but 24% would make sense. I'm 1/4 Polish, so I am not surprised here. 15% England and Northwestern Europe. So German, I'm supposed to be doing math, 24%. My dad's 1/4 German, so therefore 24% divided by 2 is 12 or 14. Or so I think this is the German part. Well, Germany's here, but interesting, because maybe it's actually English, so maybe they migrated to Germany later or something. I'm not exactly sure, but
or just they share a lot of ancestry with people in Germany. But he had mentioned all these 1/8 this and 1/8 that and all of that. So, when it comes to a lot of European DNA, it is very hard to decipher between specific countries, because, for one, when you look at the history of Europe just in the past 200-300 years, which is mostly what these tests are looking at, or at least what they can really read in a sense, the borders have changed a lot. So, and people have migrated a lot. And because of that, a lot of these different populations today share ancestral backgrounds. Sometimes it might be a bit more distant than, you'd think, but, these tests have a big issue trying to decipher between the different, DNA signatures, because there's so many different overlapping DNA signatures that they're finding in supposedly different population groups, when really the biggest difference between them isn't so much genetic, but just culture. But 15%, yeah, that would equate to about a great-grandparent. It'd be a lot from a great-grandparent, so more than likely it's different, branches of his tree kind of adding up here.
Very interesting. The history of Britain, I don't need to read this. We already know that.
Yeah.
Germanic Europe. Okay, so that's Germany. So 5% German. So maybe that the percent of the English and German is kind of mixed, but
yeah,
that makes sense based on what my dad has told me. And then Ireland. Oh, 3%. There it is. That 1/16 of me that's Irish is there. However, I just realized something. Italy is only 1%. So that means my Italian side is basically really English or something. I forgot what his great-great-great-grandfather is supposedly from Italy and
migrated well, that would make
to
sense then.
The U.S. And he was one of the first to come from the U.S. But interestingly,
I mean, if he's talking, I think he said 3 or 4 greats, so 3rd or 4th great grandparent. Well, as we do every video, you get 25% from your grandparent, 12.5% from your great grandparents, 6.25% from your second great grandparents, 3 point whatever percent from your third, and then 1.8 something, or I forgot exactly what it was, but about 1% from your fourth. But the thing is DNA recombines imperfectly. So you do get 50% from your dad, 50% from your mom, but then what you're getting from your grandparents might not be an exact 25%. You might be getting, 23% from one grandmother, 27% from the grandfather on that side, and then on the other side you might get, 21% and then 29%. So it can kind of be this mix. And then over time, you get to the point where, some generations back, even though you might have a certain ancestry that, like a 4th grade or a 5th grade ancestor that is Italian, you might not get any, or you might get a smaller amount than you expect.
Enough, it's very little Italian. So my last name, the Italian part of my name, is I have the least amount of Italian out of everything. That's actually kind of ironic and funny. Well, 3% Ireland, 2% Korean. I can now say I'm part Korean. You know how Japan and Korea is so close, so that makes sense. There's the 50% Asian. It's literally 50% Asian.
So that also means that if he were to look into his Japanese ancestry at 2%, if he were to trace his entire family tree on his mom's side, he would have about 1/3 or 4th great grandparents of Korean ancestry. So if he was able to trace that far back on his Japanese side, he might be able to find that ancestor, assuming that that's just coming from one ancestor and it's not some sort of mixture of multiple ancestors that are much more distant, and it's just, common that some Japanese will get Korean ancestry readings. Not even because there's Korean ancestry, maybe it's just because there's some sort of shared ancestry where it could be coming from anywhere. It could be someone going from Japan to Korea hundreds of years ago. They had a huge family, and then this large area in Korea has all this DNA, which they assigned to Korea in this, in ancestry DNA, but later on they may find out, oh, well, this actually is Japanese, or, it could go either way.
50% white, non-Asian. Hold on, there's Baltics. It says Baltics here too, so let me check that real quick. Latvia. Well, it's only 2%, so I can't really say anything, but interesting. Well, now we know. I'm exactly 50% half Japanese, 50% half Asian. Now all mysteries have been cleared. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
All right, that was a pretty good video. Pretty interesting. I would be interested to see if he were to take one of the Asian-based DNA tests, would he get a more nuanced reading than what he's getting through Ancestry? At the same time, it's been a little over a year since he did this video, so has there been an update? Well, I can answer that. I know there's been an update, but did it affect his results? Is there a major difference, or is it just kind of the typical, 1-2% changes on, a couple of the different percentages? One thing I was thinking about as it was going on, especially once he talked about that Baltic reading, that 2%, when he was talking about the Eastern European, he said, all of it must be coming from his Polish side, but part of it could actually be coming from that German side. When you're talking about Germany and Eastern Europe and Poland and the Austro-Hungarian Empire and, a lot of what happened in those areas, there was a lot of migration between these population groups. And so I could definitely see that, maybe part of that German ancestry he thought he had, sure, they considered themselves German, but if you were able to trace it back, maybe that community came from more of a Eastern Europe background. So as an example, earlier this week, the Mr. Beat video came out where we looked at his Volga German side, where these were people who were ethnic Germans who moved to Russia, then went from Russia to the United States, and they still considered themselves German. So Mr. Beat only knew about his family as German, but then to look at the ancestry and see, well, there were generations that lived in Russia. Well, doing a DNA test really isn't going to tell you that story. You have to do the family tree to find that out. And so if his dad or someone on his father's side has done that family tree, then maybe they could actually give kind of an explanation of why there's more of an Eastern European reading and not as much of a German reading that he might be expecting. So some of that German might be in the Eastern European, might be coming from that Baltic. Some of the Polish might be coming from the Baltic. Some of it might just be misreads because of those common connections. There are a lot of possibilities with this, and this is just giving us a very vague view of the family history for him. And I'd like to thank Useful Charts for sponsoring today's video. Well, thank you so much for checking out this video. I do hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out. You can also click right about here if you'd like to subscribe. It is completely free to do so. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at GeneaVlogger. I'm the GeneaVlogger. See you in my next video.